Welcome back. Now, we were discussing Nigeria agenda for the government. And Mr. Ekpong, the statement you made tomorrow or today is the tomorrow we created yesterday.
Yes.
And to rearrange that to the point where, I mean, talking about the government now, how to move in line with that plan. Inclusiveness. We mentioned education, we've talked economy, we've talked about the values.
Employment.
Employment. So but you ended with that values. It was on the values you were on when you said that tomorrow or today is the tomorrow we created yesterday. How did we create?
Well, wittingly or unwittingly, by the choices that we have made in the past. You know, we have created the future that we are currently in. So it will take, somebody said, you can't talk yourself out of a problem that you behaved yourself into. You must behave yourself out of that problem. So we must, as a nation, behave ourselves, you know, take on the disciplines that are necessary to get out of the quagmire that we're currently in. And, you know, the buck, again, is, you know, sits at the desk of the president. In the next 4 years, my counsel would be that he provides the leadership, you know, that will steward Nigeria to that future. That, you know, we've always been a nation with the potential. We've never actually transited from potential. From 1960, we've had potentials. We've talked about potentials, but we've never left the, you know, the table of potential to you know, so you have countries like Singapore, you have countries like even presently Rwanda making strides out after the brutal genocide to become, you know, a force to be reckoned with, even on the African continent. We must begin to do those things that are, so for Mr. President, he must paint a very clear vision. It's not enough to say you want to run an inclusive government or to put a 3 or 4 point agenda on the table. What is the vision that will draw every party, every Nigerian into that future? Then he must move from providing that clear vision to making provision for the success of the vision. How would you provide the resources, human resources, financial resources, you know, to make that vision happen? And then you must, you know, that also speaks to the need to have the right kind of people, you know. And this again comes back to the point of having an inclusive government, which is celebrated, which is very, very good. Because you have people across the political divide, people across the religious divide, people across ethnic divides that have different competencies that can help us to, you know, begin the journey of ending unemployment, of, you know, removing us from the unenviable position of poverty capital, and, you know, ending all the statistics that put us, you know, make us a very backward and undeveloping country. So Mr. President must provide that leadership in the next 4 years and be open-minded to embrace people from, you know, different sections of the country, different backgrounds, different political affiliations to help build this Nigeria. I say again that Nigeria cannot be developed by one party. Nigeria can only be developed sustainably by all parties. So whether you are PDP or APC or GDP, let's come together and build Nigeria.
Mr. Olugbene, when you were talking, you said something about incremental change or transformational change. What he's mentioned about building Nigeria from all the parties, as in aggregating all the ideas and all the resources, sounds like transformational. But in our mind as a nation, do you think we're ready for that kind of disruptive growth? Because it will be disruptive.
There is a report called Global Trends. It's produced every 5 years, and it speaks to what are likely to drive the future 5 years to 20 years away. I think the first was produced in 2010, and the projected for 2010. The next one is projected for 2035, and it's produced by the intelligence community in the US. They've now started to involve people from all over the world. In their last report, they have said there's going to be a lot of tension and there's going to be a lot of change. And what we currently are seeing in Nigeria at the moment is what has been predicted. So the point I'm making is this: if we don't willingly cooperate with it and make it happen naturally, it's going to happen forcibly. This has been seen by the intelligence community. It's going to happen. The youth are going to rise up and they're going to demand for it. There's going to be tension. The religious people are also going to rise up, and we're seeing that right now, though it may be in the negative way right now, but it's going to happen, and it will continue to happen. So we just must cooperate with it. That's what I would say here.
Doctor, some people have said that Muhammadu Buhari would write his name in our history books if only he can solve the power issue. The power issue holds the key to getting us out of recession and sorting out a large part of our economic issues. What's your take on that?
Yes, of course. The power sector holds the key to our economic revival, because virtually anything we want to do has something to do with electricity. All over the world, there is nowhere you can run this 9-to-5 economy and expect a miracle to happen. The economy must not shut down at 5-6 p.m. every day. So the power sector holds the key, and that is why government must continue to invest heavily on the infrastructure as regards the power sector. Now,
privatization.
Yeah, privatization is a way. It's a way out of it, but the privatization protocol also needs to be reviewed regularly to be able to assess how those that are coming in, how they are performing. If they are performing well, of course, we encourage them. If they are not, then we give it to people who can manage it. Of course, we won't want to go back to the era of NEPA when the government was controlling everything. But at the same time, we must ensure that only competent hands will be allowed to take part in the privatization sector, whether it's distribution or transmission or generation. So it's essential, it's critical.
Okay. Okay, gentlemen, as we begin to wind down, let's look at human and capital development. Let's get back to the place of education. Now, to build any nation, as they say, you need to educate the nation, and the nation needs to be healthy. Now, before these elections, we had practically all our tertiary institutions on strike. Now, there are more tertiary, there appears to be more tertiary institutions coming up. There are more private secondary schools, more private nursery and primary schools, and it looks like, not like that they are, but it looks like there are more private nursery and primary schools than there are public schools. Again, that issue of curriculum. How do we move that part of our lives, educational part, human capital development? How do we move it forward?
Okay, government has to be, okay.
Again, government.
Government. Okay. They are the biggest economic agent in this our space. Mr. President has said corruption, anti-corruption, security, and economy is what he wants to focus on. But if you really go behind all of this, is the need for human capital development. Not just literacy and numeracy, but people that actually have the requisite skills to contribute in an economy that is 21st and that is forward thinking.
Okay, let me just put you on pause and bring in Dr. Bewaji. I'll come back to you so a roundup. Yes.
Of course, we must train people for the jobs of the future, not for people to sit back behind one desk and be pretending to be working and expecting that they are going to collect salaries at the end of the month. We must train people in skills. I remember when I was in University of Leeds, a large chunk of our curriculum was devoted to what we call enterprise. Whatever course you are, that is the place where somebody studying law and somebody studying religious studies, that is the place where we meet. And every time we are asked to think and provide solutions to practical problems facing communities. So I think we need that in this country. A situation whereby we are sent to school, people study courses that have no relevance to modern present day. It's not going to help us. It's going to increase the number of the unemployables we have in our society.
Okay, but Maurice, again with his looking at the tertiary part, from the grassroots or from the basics, what do we need to change in the basics to get us to that point that we're talking about?
Well, from the basics, you mean from primary school,
nursery, primary.
I think we need to look at education as providing skills and attitudes that will help the individual, navigate their way through the future. So if that is the case, our education system needs to be rejigged to be a lot more practical, to be a lot more oriented to the needs of our society. So we need to look at, for instance, what needs do a primary school pupil have? And how can our education be tweaked to, to provide, to bridge the gaps, the learning gaps, the knowledge gaps, the skill gaps, the attitudinal gaps at that level. And then we can scale up all the way to tertiary.
And let me ask you this.
Yes.
More and more, trade schools seem to be disappearing, which were the skill schools.
Yes.
So what you're therefore advocating is that those be brought back.
Correct.
Suppose they're brought back and pupils do not want to attend them because they're still looking at themselves as, when I finish, I want to put on a suit and be in an office. Then what happens?
Well, it must become compulsory at primary school level to learn some kind of trade. It must become compulsory, if we must move forward. If you look at China, for instance, at a very young age, these children begin to work with computers. They begin to build things. They are encouraged to innovate. But here, we are still in a situation where our public primary schools only teach pupils to use a hoe and cutlass, So we are completely cut off from the modern era. We are completely... I think the biggest opportunity that Nigeria has is not even in developing the power sector per se, but in exploring our agricultural potentials and developing a curriculum right from the primary school level that encourages people to, even practice or develop agriculture as a hobby. Mr. Olumwele spoke about our flag. That's the DNA of the Nigerian agriculture that is held together by peace and unity. So our founding fathers knew that our future is very, very intricately tied to agriculture. So we must develop a curriculum right at the primary school that encourages people to rethink, and innovate,
But, one would think that because of the situation in which we find ourselves,
yes,
we don't have to be told. It is glaringly obvious that the kind of education that we had is not the kind of education that Nigeria needs today. So how come we're still talking about it and not doing anything about it? Going to university to go and study classics, that's hardly going to get you anywhere.
Okay, where there is no vision, the people cast off restraint. They behave like a wild ox. We have not yet agreed amongst ourselves where we are going. Until we know where we are going, we will not know what we have to become.
Isn't that what the national anthem is telling us?
How many people understand the national anthem? How many people break it down? In the church where I
One
worship,
nation bound in freedom.
we sing it every Sunday to make it sink into the people, the two stanzas. But how many
it's not
people?
sinking.
But it is sinking.
It is.
Well, for
the church,
the
yes.
small sector where I operate. But how many people in Nigeria even understand that the national anthem has lessons, has values, has vision inculcated?
It's a call to action.
Yeah, it's not there.
Yes.
It's just something we sing before the football and then we clap.
Okay.
If you look at a nation like Israel, there is a book written by Americans on them called, I think, Wall Street, called Startup Nation. It says per capita, they have the largest number of entrepreneurs all over the world. How did they get there? They created an environment for education, high quality education, as well as venture capital. And guess what is happening? Per thousand, they are producing the largest number of entrepreneurs for a country. Put that beside Kenya. There's another book written by Kenyans, written on Kenya, called, he mentioned something along this line, It's Our Time to Eat. The story of the whistleblower. The government that rode in on anti-corruption engaged a man, John Kitongo, as the own equivalent of the EFCC. And he said, you know how corrupt a system is by how quickly the president gets his first gold Rolex watch. How long did it take this particular president? 6 months. He had to put wire on himself to enter into meetings to actually capture the essence of that government, which was corruption. They came in, we will fight corruption. But they were the citadel of corruption. Now, put these two nations together. One says, it's our time to eat. That's our culture. Another one says, we are start-up nation. If a book were to be written about Nigeria today, what would the title be? I leave that to fellow Nigerians to decide.
Now, Doctor, some years ago, government was trying to encourage startups and asked banks to set up a certain percentage of their profits, I think it was, for small-scale industries. But that didn't seem to help, did it? Because they were asking for an arm and a leg as interests, so people did not even access those funds at all. Is there anything that you would say we should do now so that we can have more people going into business, setting up their own businesses?
Yes, what I think we can do is if we encourage the banks, the companies, the industries to go into our institutions and partner with the academics. Partner with the academics. It's working all over the world. It's working in the Western world. Partner with the academics. We develop new curriculum.
Sorry, Doctor, we really have to go. Maybe I shouldn't have asked that question at all, but we've completely run out of time. Dr. Mumi Bewaji, Executive Director, Coalition of Democrats for Electoral Reforms. And we also had Mr. Lumide Olugbenle, Transformational Leadership Expert, and Mr. Maurice Ekpong, Managing Director, Maurana, who is a social reformer. Thank you all very much for coming. And sorry I had to cut you short that way. Sunrise will be right back with another interesting conversation.